Hello and welcome. It is another rousing edition of the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. I'm Matt Michaels. Hello to you, Brad Trinago.
Hello, hello. It's starting to feel like fall a little bit, even though it's like 105 degrees outside.
Well, basically August, and we had a couple of weeks where it was like temperate almost for Missouri, so we knew Mother Nature was going to get back to us with those hot temperatures, and we've got a lot to talk about because football camp is underway for the Missouri Tigers. That means football season is here, and we've got a great guest coming your way to talk all about a top-down picture of what Missouri and the SEC look like this year. We will first introduce our good friends at Shelter Insurance, who power the podcast, ranked number one in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power 5 of the last 6 years. We're your shield, we're your shelter. Thank you to Socket Fiber, which is now available. It's the fastest, most reliable internet combined with local service and simple billing. Contact Socket today for voice data and internet services for your home and business. 1-800-SOCKET3 or visit socket.net. And Tiger fans, say aloha to Hawaiian Bros, where the island-inspired flavors are positively delicious. You'll love favorites like Huli Huli Chicken, Luau Pig, and the delectable Dole Soft Serve. Hawaiian Bros is just south of campus on Grindstone Parkway, or order them online at hawaiianbros.com. Our special guest today is only the person who puts together 350-plus pages that are the Bible to college football fans. It is Phil Steele's College Football 24. It's on your newsstands now. It's available online now. And Phil Steele joins us here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast to talk about the Tigers heading into a very, very important and exciting season. Phil, we're glad to have you here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast.
Hey, a real pleasure talking with you guys. It's been a couple minutes since the last time we talked.
Been a couple minutes and a couple job changes, I think, on Matt
for both of us.
But you're still available, of course, with the Phil Steele magazines and philsteele.com, and great work, as Matt mentioned, always getting folks ready for the college football seasons. We'll jump right in here talking about Mizzou stuff. And Phil, this is a rare opportunity for me to frame my question this way. But why do you rank Mizzou only preseason number 18 in the country?
That's a great question. You know, I think Missouri's going to actually be preseason top 10. Projected that in my AP poll. And when you look at Missouri this year, the offense is clearly there. I have no doubts about, the offensive line's a veteran group. The receiving core I rate number 2 in the country. And while they lose an exceptional running back in Cody Schrader, I like both Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll taking his place. And, of course, Brady Cook now firmly the leader of the offense. I guess I've got some questions in the back end of the defense. Losing 3 NFL draft picks out of the secondary hurts. Losing a number 1 draft pick off the defensive line hurts. And, of course, the SEC is a pretty tough conference. When I looked at their schedule this year, I did make them an underdog at A&M. College Station's a tough place to play. At Alabama. And then figured you look at the Oklahoma at South Carolina games, they probably split them. So overall, probably looking about a 9-win season, and that's why I had them at 18 right now. But I could easily see them higher. And as I mentioned, I think they're going to be AP top 10 at the start of the year.
Yeah, and understanding the success that Missouri finished the season with last year and a lot of returning production, especially in the wide receiver room, which I think you ranked number 2 overall in the nation coming into this year. A good passing game and a productive offense can take you a long, long way in college football, especially these days. Is that maybe part of the way that you would look at Missouri's upside this season, is if that offense clicks even more than it did last year, it can maybe even paper over some concerns that you might have in the defensive side or in other areas?
Yeah, that's definitely the way college football is moving to, isn't it? It seems like the teams that have the best offense are the ones that are winning it a lot of the times. And as you mentioned, with Missouri, question marks on the defense in my mind, losing 4 draft picks like they did, and of course their defensive coordinator, but an explosive offense can overcome that. Look at LSU last year. Their defense was below their standards, yet they had a pretty good season because the offense was so explosive.
And let's circle back now. Matt touched on you having the receiving core as not only the best in the SEC, but second best in the country. What is it about that group that stands out the most to you?
Well, first of all, Luther Burden. I mean, he may be the best wide receiver in the country. But then you add in a Mookie Cooper, a Theo Weiss, and I also include the tight ends in the equation in my receiving cores. And Brett Norfleet and Tyler Stevens are a couple of outstanding tight ends. So really, this unit has got a ton of experience. They've got one of the best wide receivers in the country. They've got players that can take the heat off of Luther Burden. And I think it's a deep unit overall. So that's why I've got him number 2.
You also have a pretty good ranking on Missouri's linebacking core, and there is some returning production that's there, but there also is a bunch of new coming talent from other places. Talk a little bit about how you looked at that unit, and I think that in the end you had Missouri's rush defense predicted as a preseason top 15, and they would have a lot to say about that in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And, while Chuck Hicks is back, and Tristan Newson, I think, is an NFL prospect. He's a guy that was lost early last year, and now he's back. That's a big plus. And then adding guys like Khalil Jacobs from South Alabama, who, of course, knows the defense because of Batoon coming in as the defense coordinator. Corey Flagg coming in from Miami of Florida. And even Jeremiah Beasley, a true freshman who transferred in from Michigan after spending the spring with them. So I like the overall depth. I also include the star position in my linebacker write-ups. Dalen Carnell is a guy that is another one that's an all-conference caliber guy. So I think there's a lot of talent among the linebackers, and they go a definite 2 deep, almost 3 deep in the linebacking core.
Meanwhile, special teams you've got as the second worst in the conference. Obviously, the loss of Harrison Mevis, I'm sure, plays in a little bit on that. But can you go into a little bit of some of the concerns that you may have with Mizzou special teams?
Yeah, losing Mevis is big. Now, Craig has a big leg, and he could fill in nice. And their punter Bauer is back as well after splitting the duties last year. But they really need someone to emerge, and we'll see how Craig does at the kicker. I thought Mevis just incredible. I mean, you go back to the games he's won and that 61-yard field goal he booted against Kansas State. Wow. Replacing a guy like him is tough. And then, not having the number 1 punter necessarily returning would be another question mark. So there are question marks in my mind in the special teams.
Yeah, and you mentioned the kick that Missouri fans will remember for a long time against Kansas State that Mevis made. It was one of those 4 close wins that Missouri had last season, and I know that you and your preseason predictions really factor in, okay, how many close wins did you have compared to close losses? In fact, Missouri didn't lose a close loss game by your metric last season. Over time, how have you seen that metric play out, that a team that in one year has a lot of success winning close games, do they come back to earth the next?
Yeah, and generally it's about a 75% thing that I followed, and it's over a decade now that I've been looking at the close wins, close losses, and teams that benefit from a lot of close wins one year. Let's go to the NFL version. The Minnesota Vikings 2 years ago, they had like 9 close wins during the course of the year, had a phenomenal record. And then last year, I think they were -4 in a close win, close loss category and had a big drop off in the record. So that is something 75% of the time, teams that benefit from a lot of close wins have weaker record the next year, and vice versa. Teams that had a lot of close losses the previous year go over that hump the next year and have a better record. The one exception, probably Nebraska. The last 6 years, Nebraska's had so many close losses. It's ridiculous. They're in my 25% category on a yearly basis.
Boy, you just hate to see that for Mizzou fans. Boy, it just breaks your heart.
Couldn't handle that at all.
Something else you look at, Phil, is the schedule in terms of winning percentage for opponents. And there's been a lot of talk about Mizzou's schedule. At least by SEC standards, it's relatively easy and it sets up favorably. But you note that Mizzou's schedule may actually be a little bit underrated if you look at the winning percentage of opponents.
Yeah, a little bit, because the winning percentage is showing them way down, and my schedule shows them playing the number 62 schedule. But I tell you what, who plays the number 62 schedule playing in the SEC? It's hardly anybody. I love the Missouri schedule, especially in conference play. They only play Alabama and Oklahoma. They avoid Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, which is really nice, and Georgia as well. And then you play this year they actually have 6 teams that have a first-year head coach. And the thing I found in my 30 years of the magazine is generally first-year head coaches, they've got to learn the players' strengths and weaknesses. Players have to learn new systems. You have a lot of players hitting the transfer portal, especially nowadays, and the first-year head coaches usually have a learning curve. So it's just a dream schedule for Missouri this year. If they're ever going to make hay in the SEC, this is going to be the year.
Well, you mentioned learning curve, and unfortunately, some of those first-year head coaches don't really have a learning curve. I think that everybody in the state of Alabama would expect that Kalen DeBoer goes in and has big success right away because that's what they're looking for every season as a program standard. When you look at those 6 newcomers and their individual situations, are there 1 or 2 coaches you think might be able to better weather that first-year storm, if you will, than most?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one that stands out to me is the guy you just touched on, Kalen DeBoer. I got to be honest, when the news hit that Nick Saban retired, a bunch of players hit the portal, I was like, guess what? Bama's in for a rebuilding year this year, huh? Then they hired DeBoer, which I thought was a great hire. I mean, the guy's 104-12 as a head coach, great record. And then what he did is he went to the transfer portal and brought in the replacements. He brought in Keon Saab at safety, Damani Jackson at cornerback from Michigan and USC, respectively. They had snapping problems last year on the offensive line. He goes and brings in Parker Brailsford, who was the center for the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line. Brings in Bernard at wide receiver. Signs the Lou Groza Award winner for crying out loud, and Graham Nicholson at kicker. And then, going over the roster with Coach DeBoer last year with Washington and going over the roster with Coach DeBoer this year at Alabama, I actually think he's got more talent at Alabama than he had at Washington last year, and he took Washington to the national championship game. So I have a lot of respect for Coach DeBoer. Love the talent he has. He's got a veteran quarterback in Jalen Milroe, and I like the overall talent he has. I look for big things from DeBoer in his first year at Bama.
Your preseason SEC projections have Mizzou in a tie for 5th, along with LSU, Tennessee, and Oklahoma. You got Georgia as the SEC favorite, followed by Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. As you look around the SEC, which team do you feel like is most undervalued nationally, and which one may be a little overvalued?
As far as overvalued, it'd be tough. Let me think. Let's go to the undervalued one. I'm going to throw one out at you, and that's Florida. I mean, everybody's looking at Florida and their schedule this year and saying, you know what, they're going to have a tough year. And they do play the toughest schedule in the entire country, no doubt about it. But Billy Napier is now in his 3rd year at Florida. His first 2 years, he had inexperienced squads. He was also dealing with Dan Mullen recruits. We all know Dan Mullen didn't hit the recruiting trail very hard. Napier's brought in 3 good recruiting classes, finally has an experienced team. They're up to number 52 on my experience chart. I like the addition of DJ Lagway backing up Mertz at QB. Mertz last year actually led the SEC in completion percentage, had a 20-2 ratio, so I think they're solid there. And when I talked to Coach Napier last year and going over the team with him, I said, Coach, Graham Mertz, he doesn't fit your offense. I wasn't impressed with him at Wisconsin. He's like, Phil, he's very intelligent, hard worker, blah, blah. Give me a whole bunch of reasons why he's going to have a success, and he did. This year I said, Coach, toughest schedule in the country. He says, Phil, the end of the year, the schedule might not look as tough. So I think Florida is going to have a better year than most expect. I think their Vegas over-under win total on ESPN Bet right now is 4.5. I think they can get to 7-8 wins this year, despite playing the type of schedule they are.
Well, I think Missouri fans could see things that way too, Phil, after the game that Florida gave them, giving the Tigers one big memory with a big 4th down conversion that led them to success. But Florida gave that good Missouri team everything it wanted last season and more. As we look to what this 16 team looks like, the SEC now has Texas and Oklahoma. You see movement from out west to the Big 10 and the Big 12. For you, as someone who tries to model all this stuff, do you have to tweak the computers and put in a little bit of just personal gut feeling when it comes into so many changes, evaluating teams across the college football landscape this season? Because what one team might do in the Pac-12 might not be the same thing they do in the Big 10 with a step up in competition week to week?
Yeah, you always have to look at that. And I will say this. I thought last year the Pac-12 was on par with the Big Ten and the SEC. The Pac-12 had its best year probably in the last 10 years. Had exceptional quarterback play throughout and had some really good teams. So I don't know if the Pac-12 teams are taking a step up in competition. I think Oregon actually gets to the Big Ten title game this year. But I tell you what, it is heck picking 16, 17, and 18 team conferences. I mean, how many ties do you project? Because there's only 9 different outcomes and you've got 16 teams. So that automatically says there's 7 ties. And people go, oh, you picked too many ties. But I mean, 18 teams. I've been in this for 30 years, never picked an 18 team conference before. There's always been at least divisions to go by.
What's the biggest way you think the 12 team playoff changes college football?
I've always been a 4-team advocate. I've been talking about the 4-team probably for 20 years, and they finally became to fruition. But I actually like this 12-team playoff now after last year. Prior to last year, there had never been a case where a team was left out of the playoffs that deserved to be there. And yet I think Georgia, had they made the playoff last year, probably would have won the national title. I thought they were the best team in college football. And Florida State being left out was tough as well. Now, this year, you've got the group of 5. I mean, every group of 5 conference is excited. Every team, every conference that I've talked to has been just super excited because they all have a chance of making the playoff. Teams like Ole Miss, Missouri, Penn State, teams that really didn't have a great shot at making the playoff before, now all have a great shot at it. So I'm pretty excited. And I do think, though, when the playoff comes, that we're going to have 12 teams. We're going to have an ACC. We're going to have a Big 12. We're going to have a group of 5. We're going to have Notre Dame. And then the other 8 spots are probably going to be SEC, Big 10. Whether it's 4-4 or 5-3, I think the SEC and the Big 10 are going to dominate those other spots.
Phil, I wonder too, since so many things have been changing around college football, we've got new timing rules this season. We've got 2-minute warnings in whatever name you want to call them in games. We've seen now the running clock for a couple of seasons over the course of most of play. You maybe have seen some tweaks in offense due to that change so far, or maybe not, but how do you think the continued evolution of how they're trying to regulate the product on the field is going to impact offense and defense as we get into this season and beyond?
Yeah, last year we saw a little bit of the shortening of the game, which selfishly, I want the games to be shorter. And here's why. I got 12 TVs in front of me when I'm watching them, right? And there's nothing that aggravates me more than to have that 12 o'clock game be running into my 3:30 game. And now I got to be running around, moving sets all over the place, trying to see, and I'm missing part of one game because I'm watching the finish of another. 3.5 hours is plenty of time. Let's leave it at that. Get the games over with, shorten it up even more, just so I don't have that overlap and miss some plays in the games. But I digress. I think they'll probably be maybe shorten it up a little bit more. But Brad, as a play-by-play guy, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's shorten this thing up. I mean, especially to add on that the 2-minute warning is also going to be an interesting element, and that's not something that's going to shorten the games necessarily, but it's going to really adjust, in terms of game theory, how you approach, that 2-minute drill at the end of games, or your 4-minute drill if you're trying to run out the clock. But I'm with you overall. Let's keep the games moving. Let's get toward a conclusion under 4 hours, please.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody is in disagreement that we could get this thing done in a more reasonable amount of time. And everybody can still get paid, by the way. Everybody's still getting paid. We don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, it's not a per minute rate for most of us. We're good there. Phil, you mentioned the SEC and the Big Ten probably dominating most of the spots in the 12-team playoff. And in your preseason top 25, I believe your top 5 teams are from those 2 conferences, with Georgia as the pick to win the national title. But what teams outside the Big 2 conferences do you think have the best chance to win a national title?
Well, out of the Big 12, I think you have to take a look at Utah. Now, Utah, as mentioned, the Pac-12 last year was on par with the SEC and the Big Ten, and they played a brutal schedule. They had to play Oregon State, USC, Washington, Arizona, all on the road. And it was a nondescript thing that happened in August. They lost their backup quarterback. No big deal, right? But then Cam Rising didn't play. So now you're down to your third, fourth, and fifth string QB. Teams could stack the line and not have to fear the pass on them all year long. And they struggled. They lost 5 games. But this year, they get Cam Rising back. They've got that backup quarterback, Brandon Rose, back. Sam Hurd comes in. He was my number 2 rated quarterback out of high school. Under Whittingham, they're always strong at the line of scrimmage. And you have to be strong at the line of scrimmage to have a shot to win the national title. And Utah is just that. That's actually their strengths every year is the line of scrimmage. And then you look at their schedule. Most of the tough games are at home in Rice-Eccles Stadium, where they've only lost 2 games the last 5 years. I think Utah wins the Big 12, gets to the playoff. And as we saw in the Rose Bowl the previous 2 years when they were the Pac-12 champs, they can compete with the big boys. They probably only lost the games against Ohio State and Penn State because Rising got injured during the game, but now they're better prepared if Rising gets injured. So that's my team out of the Big 12. Now, out of the ACC, I got 3 teams that I think can do it. Clemson, Florida State, and Miami of Florida. And I was a little skeptical on Florida State because they lost so much, like Jordan Travis. They lost their top running back in Benson. They lost Coleman and Wilson, a receiver, and Bell as well. But when going over the team with Coach Norvell, he actually feels this could be his best team if they get it out of DJ Uiagalelei, a quarterback, and Norvell has developed quarterbacks in the past. In fact, when Jordan Travis came in, he was nowhere near the quarterback he was when he left. If he is the QB that you thought he was out of high school, Florida State's got a great shot. And then Miami of Florida, Cristobal's really building this team well, brought in a ton of transfers. And after spring was over, you said, hey, they got the weakness at running back, but he solved that. He brought in Damian Martinez from Oregon State. They've got Cam Ward from Washington State. They still have Restrepo and George. Their offensive line is massive, guys. I mean, it's like 6'6" is the small guy on the offensive line. They're all like 320 pounds. The defense is loaded as well. And Miami's got a pretty good schedule. Keep in mind them. And then Clemson. Last year, Clemson lost 4 games. But in those 4 games, they had a 94-60 first down advantage. So they weren't outplayed at the line by any stretch of the imagination. Go back to the Florida State game. Florida State was unbeaten last year. They did not lead a single second in regulation. Clemson had the ball up by 7, going for a score to put them up by 2. They fumbled, returned 70 yards for a touchdown, missed a game-winning field goal in the final minutes, and lost the game in overtime. They were much better than their 9-4 record. And while everybody says Dabo's not hitting the portal for players, guess what? He's not losing players to the portal. They lost like 3 guys out of the 2 deep to the portal. He's got the best chemistry of any team. All these kids are recruited by Clemson. They're there for Clemson, and they're not bringing in other players, which could upset the chemistry or the culture of the team. Watch out for Clemson this year. I think they're going to be much better than expected. Those 4 teams would be the other teams outside the Big Ten and the SEC that I feel have a chance of actually competing for the national title.
Those are very well taken points on Clemson, although I think Missouri fans are pretty happy that one of those portal defections went to the Missouri Tigers and Toriano Pride. They're really excited to see the former East St. Louis Flyer on the field in black and gold. There's so much that we could talk about the season coming up, Phil, but I want to ask you. You mentioned 12 TV setups, big long days. You watch everything. You talk to everybody. What makes you the most excited about this time of year?
The fact that we're going to be talking season will be over pretty soon, and we'll be heading off to the football season. And it's a brand new year, and you learn something about the teams and the players every single week, every single game during the season. So it's always a lot more fun when the games are actually being played.
We can't agree more, and we're glad that we are just a few weeks away from it for Missouri and everybody else in the SEC and across the country. Phil Steele, our guest here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. You need to get it. Phil Steele's College Football Preview 24. It is on your newsstands. It is online. Basically, you just search for Phil Steele, and they find you, right, Phil?
Yeah, it's at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and philsteele.com are the 3 places to get it. And, don't drive around looking for it. 352 pages, though. It's got 2 full pages on every single team. We give the same amount of information on Troy or Akron that we do on Alabama and Texas, 2 full pages.
If you want to learn about everybody in college football, you will learn from reading Phil Steele's College Football Preview, and Phil Steele with us here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. Again, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for it, and we look forward to talking down the road, and hopefully after another good Missouri season, we can keep that streak alive.
Sounds good. Hey, a lot of fun talking football with you guys. Really enjoyed it again.
Absolutely. That's Phil Steele. Brad and I will be back with some more fun for you after you hear from our friends at Shelter Insurance.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Shelter Insurance. Ranked number 1 in customer satisfaction for auto insurance in the Central Region by J.D. Power 5 out of the last 6 years. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
And our podcast is also powered by Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants, great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, the famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's. Also, a big thank you to Raceline Alternative Energy, working for a better future in rural Missouri. They are working to restore millions of acres of native prairie plants, which can be harvested to produce highly valuable clean energy called Prairie Power. Visit them online at racelinealternativeenergy.com.
If you're starting fall football practices, even if it's on artificial surface, get you some of that Prairie Power from our friends at Raceline.
You might need some extra Prairie Power for all the fans and hydration and everything you'll need. It will be hot for Missouri football to start its camp, which is ongoing as we speak this week. They had a big media day confab this past weekend, which was great. I think the whole team was through there, if not almost the whole team. So you'll get a lot of good stories, I think, about this Missouri football team going forward. We tried to bring you a few as well, as we've done the past couple of seasons, trying to get some one-on-one interviews to introduce you to some of these Tigers and maybe some names that you haven't heard from recently or hearing from for the first time. So we've got 4 of those here for you that we'll present in the back half of the podcast. One of them, only a 1,300-yard rusher from a season ago. Not bad if you can replace Cody Schrader with someone of the ilk of Marcus Carroll, and we had a chance to sit down with the former Georgia State, now Missouri running back. Here with the Missouri Tiger running back by way of Georgia State and the Peach State, it is Marcus Carroll joining us right now. Marcus, it's good to have you in Columbia, and it's good to have a football season that everybody has so much excitement for finally here.
Yes, sir. It's nice to be here, man. I'm telling you, man, the energy is through the roof, man. I can't wait. It's going to be a great year, definitely.
For you personally, what was it that made Missouri the place that you wanted to play college football this season?
Yeah, so when I came here, you really just know about the culture. I mean, you really know when something feels right. You could tell that Coach Drink and the guys, as far as the attention to detail, the brotherhood, the folk, just the detail on the little things, and that's just something I was looking for in a program that not only I can develop physically but mentally, and I'm telling you, they really do a good job here. So
as someone who has had success in big time college football, an all Sun Belt performer, you were Doak Walker semifinalist. When you think about how you take the next step from an already high level of success, what are some of the things that you think give you an edge, that maybe gave Missouri an edge, that puts it at a place where you think, okay, if I'm going to take another leap, this is where I'm going to do it?
Okay, yeah. Really, I feel like the big emphasis for me as far as the transition is just really being where you are right now. Just taking it day by day. Like tomorrow's practice is the next focus. How good can I be? How can I match my potential? Because if I could do it, then I know that it'll help the team ultimately. So just taking it day by day, not getting too much into the future, because that's how sometimes you can get lost, but just being appreciative, being grateful of what you got right now, and just taking it day by day. And I know that everything is just anything how it's supposed to go is just going to take care of itself. So
I know the work is going to begin really intensely here in fall camp with your running backs coach Curtis Looper, but what have you already picked up from Coach Loop that you think has helped you grow as a running back?
Oh man, I mean, the character, just carrying yourself. Coach Loop tell me all the time. I mean, everybody, all eyes on you. You know how you treat people, everything is gonna come back. So just the character of anything, how to carry yourself, and it's been a lot for me. So
how you do one thing is how you do anything.
How you do anything, right? Exactly.
What is something maybe about the guys in your running back room that you think maybe people don't understand, that you hope comes out over the course of the season, that people learn about you guys as a unit?
Man, when I say Jamal, T-Man, Bryce, all of the guys, man, I mean, you can tell from day one, I mean, we're all competing and stuff, but at the end of the day, we're human, we're brothers, we're still friends. I remember the other day we sent it food in the chat like, oh, I cooked pasta today. Oh, T-Bag cooked steak today. Oh, like, you know, stuff like that. You know, and stuff like that really takes you a long ways because I mean, you actually have a bond outside of football. So when you're playing on the field, it's just like, you know, you see a guy down or having a bad day. It's easy to, you know, pick him up, and it's easy to take criticism from somebody because you like, you know, it's not personal. You know, he knows me, we're having a good time. So you'll definitely see that as the year go along. Everybody picking each other up because we need everybody, honestly.
Whether it's in college or at other places, have you seen the difference in teams that have that dynamic compared to teams that maybe don't have it as much?
Yes, I'm telling you, it makes a huge difference. I know this is high school, but my high school team, I mean, we were close like brothers, and we was able to. And that's when we won our state championship is because I mean, we had a bond, and it carried on throughout the season. You seen that when it was tough times, you seen everybody picking each other up and stuff like that. And stuff like that honestly takes you. Like people think it's little, but it takes you a long ways, longer than you think. So yeah.
As someone who grew up in the state of Georgia, what does it mean to you to say SEC football is a part of my future very, very soon?
Oh yes, it's exciting. I can't wait. I'm ready to attack it head on. Yeah, it's why I'm here. I mean, SEC football is top level. You know, you got guys that you're going to go against, you know, first round or second round, week in, week out. And that's, I mean, and you got to compete with the best, you know. So, I mean, I can't wait for it. I'm ready to attack it.
All right, so you mentioned that the group text might have some, like, favorite foods going on, people cooking different stuff.
Yeah.
If you've got to cook for yourself, what are you making?
Man, probably my favorite dish is this. I make this pasta with sausage and shrimp with some Texas toast, man. I mean, gosh,
like a little Cajun action going on there?
Yeah, a little Cajun pasta, man. And when I say, man, I'll eat that 3 days in a row. I mean, I probably will feel like cooking 3 days in a row, but yeah, but that's my go-to dish for sure. If I had to cook for anybody, that's my go-to dish.
Finally, Marcus, when we get to the end of all this, when this season is done, it can be on the field, it can be off the field. What does success look like for you and for this team this year?
Success is honestly knowing that every day I gave my best. Every day I gave my best. I helped my teammates. I influenced. I impacted others. And, you know, I put skin, blood, tears into the game. And then whatever outcome that happens after that, I'm totally fine with it. I'm not regretting anything because everything is going to happen how it's supposed to happen. So.
One of the newest Missouri Tigers in the running back room, but certainly a veteran and a key part of this year's Tiger team, Marcus Carroll, with us in the preseason lead-up. We're so happy to have you and look forward to seeing you on the field this year.
All right, thanks for having me.
It's Marcus Carroll.
All right.
Fans, say aloha to Hawaiian Bros, where the island-inspired flavors are positively delicious. You'll love favorites like huli huli chicken, luau pig, and the delectable Dole soft serve. Hawaiian Bros, just south of campus on Grindstone Parkway, or order at hawaiianbros.com.
I mean, there's not much more to say other than I think you can tell in the conversation with Marcus, he's a mature player. He understands what his strengths, his weaknesses are, and to hear him say, hey, this was the place for me to be my best, it's got to be really exciting for Tiger fans.
I really enjoyed being kind of a fly on the wall off to the side while you were having that conversation with Marcus Carroll, and I think he's a guy that among that group at running back, yeah, and this is something Coach Drinkwitz has said multiple times in the preseason, replacing Cody Schrader the man, Cody Schrader the person, is going to be a bigger challenge than replacing Cody Schrader's production. And I think that why he says that is because you brought in guys like Carroll who have proven that they've been productive, and another guy that has proven he's been productive at a smaller college level who has the potential for big things here too.
Yeah, Nate Noel is only the number 8 rusher in the program history of the Appalachian State Mountaineers. Yeah, number 8 in that program's history. He averaged about 5.7 per tote, and now he's a Missouri Tiger. And Brad had a chance to sit down with Nate Noel.
One of the newcomers at running back for Mizzou this coming season is going to be Nate Noel, originally from Miami, Florida. Last played collegiately at Appalachian State, had a lot of success there. Nate, first of all, what was it about Mizzou that led you to feel like this was the right place for you?
First of all, just seeing the scheme-wise, I really felt like I could fit in. And then when I came here speaking to the coaches and over the phone before coming here, we just developed like a great relationship, and it just felt like the right move. It felt like a family move.
Was there any connection there from the Appalachian State side? Because, you get a lot of folks that are now here at Mizzou that were also at App at one point. Was there a connection there as well?
Not directly. Like, it was like I seen them before, but like we were like months before each other. Like, so I never really met them until I got recruited and got in here. But then since we started talking, it's just been like, they just accepted me and felt like family again. So it felt like the right move.
I'm looking at your sweatshirt. It says "motivated off hunger." What
Yes,
does
sir.
that phrase mean to you?
That means a lot. That really means everything. It's just like, just no free handouts, like nothing. You just got to go out there and grind.
What was life like as a youngster growing up in Miami? I think we all know that Miami has a reputation for creating some tremendous football players going forward. What was that like for you growing up?
It was a lot of competition. It was a lot of competition. I loved it. I loved it and I embraced it. And I feel like that's what really helped me get to where I'm at right now. I feel like every week it was like a lot of people that didn't play, that didn't get to play college or NFL, that you got to play in Optimus or my younger days, that really helped shape and mold the person I am today, as far as the moves I make and all the ways I do stuff.
We're talking with one of Mizzou's new running backs, Nate Noel. What about your time at Appalachian State? I mean, statistically, obviously, you had a lot of success there. How did that experience help to shape you too?
Oh, my time at Appalachian State, it was great. It molded me to a man. I was able to grow on my own, away from home, away from my parents, and just, take on a whole bunch of new tasks and goals. It was amazing. I applaud Coach Clark and the whole coaching staff, like everybody, for just taking me in as one of their own and never making me feel like anything else.
Speaking of coaches, I know a lot of running backs that we've had a chance to talk to have spoken highly of Curtis Looper and what he's like as a leader of that room. What has Curtis Looper's impact been on you so far?
It's been a great impact. He's been able to teach me a lot of the stuff that, especially at my age now, like towards the end of my college career, you would think I know some stuff, but he's able to teach me a lot more stuff than I ever thought I known. And it's just, it's great to have a veteran coach on your side, that really had, other running backs, my play style and, different play styles. So he really knows what he's doing, and it's very amazing.
What do you feel like your play style is? What should Mizzou fans know about what it's going to be like whenever you've got the rock in your hands?
Electric, game-changing, game-breaker. That's all I can really describe it as.
What about some of these other folks in the room? Marcus Carroll is kind of a similar situation to you, transferring in from a little bit smaller school. You've got some younger guys that coming up from high school, and folks that have been here. But what's it been like to work with some other pretty talented guys in that room?
It's been great. It's been everything, because I've been able to see like the game from really 6-7 different perspectives, because we all see the whole a different way, and we all feel like we could set up the linebackers a different way. Some may run through, some may run around, some may juke them, but we all bring something different. And I feel like Marcus Carroll, T-Man, Jamal, Keywan, Anthony, I feel like the whole running back room is just Bryce, everybody. We all got something to prove.
So you grew up in Miami. You spent a little time a little bit farther North Carolina playing collegiately. Have you prepared yet for what the cold is going to be like here in Missouri when we get to like November and hopefully December, a home game here and beyond?
Yes. I mean, I don't think you ever get used to the cold. It's just it's just whether you know how to take it or not. So, I mean, yeah, over these past 4 years, it's definitely been a change. But, yeah, I've been able to adapt pretty good.
No matter the weather, we're looking forward to seeing what you've got in black and gold this season. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That's Nate Noel.
Again, it's not like you lose a lot in the running back room when you hear from a player like Noel, who I think understands and will be mature, just like Carroll and the others there, that their roles will be defined throughout the season. I don't necessarily see anyone being the bell cow, so to speak. You're going to see a lot of both of these dudes as we go through the coming year.
I really think that's the case, and they both have the confidence of producing already at the FBS level. And like you mentioned, I think, not just those two. I mean, Jamal Roberts, pardon me. It'd be great if Jamal Roberts produced like Jamal Lewis, and maybe he will someday. But Jamal Roberts and Kewan Lacey, and I mean, there's just so many guys that appear to have a lot of promise. And you combine those younger guys with the guys that we just talked to in Carroll and Noel, and it's still some excitement. You lose a guy like Cody Schrader, a lot of times it's, oh geez, what are you going to do in terms of replacing that production? I think there's a lot of excitement in terms of what Mizzou has at running back.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it can be, once again, a bright spot for the Tigers, and that's why there was a whole winter, spring, and fall for these guys to get situated and really get on board and try to make this as good a season as it can be. On the defensive side, as we continue our transfer portal roulette, we'll hear from someone who was certainly recruited by Missouri coming out of high school, decided that Clemson University was right for him, but now not so much. I want to be back closer to home. And now a Missouri Tiger who's going to help out the secondary in big ways is Toriano Pride Jr., and we caught up with him this past weekend. Here with another new Missouri Tiger, although not necessarily new to a lot of people who have followed high school football around the area, the former East St. Louis Flyer. Toriano Pride Jr. is with us right now on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. Tori, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
I know that there are a lot of Tiger fans who are excited to see you in the black and gold. I just need to ask, was there like a huge Luther Burden lobby? Was he hitting you up like, man, if they want you here, you got to be back home?
Yeah, a little bit he was.
Yeah, what was that process like to get you back to Missouri and here at Mizzou?
It wasn't really that hard. I mean, I already kind of had my mind set very early. I already knew what I wanted to do, but it wasn't that hard for me.
Mm-hmm. What excites you the most about this jump from a very fine program in Clemson in the ACC to now SEC football here in Columbia?
Just the hype, just seeing how Mizzou was doing while I was at another school, just hearing about it, everybody back home, my friends telling me about it. I just want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, how has it measured up to your expectations so far? Between Coach Drink and your teammates, has that hype, has that energy?
Yeah,
as of right
now, it is. I'm waiting for the season to start up to really get it all. But yeah, as of everything, they checking off everything off the box for sure.
You've had this experience in big-time college football, so you know a lot about your style of play. What do you think people are going to see from Toriano Pride as you go through the season? What do you expect people to see from you on the field?
I'd like to say I'm a technician and I'm a dog. Yeah, them two things for real.
Technician and a dog. All right. So how about the technician part?
Yeah.
Is that film study?
Yeah, study, watching the opposing team, studying the whole week, knowing what their their movements, what they like to do on certain downs and releases. For me, as watching the receiver.
Mm-hmm. So trying to read the tendencies,
find their habits
of the guy who's across from you, and then being a dog, I think most people understand. You just have to have that fight, right?
Yeah, you got to have it in you.
Yeah. How does that show up in the way that you play? Is it just getting back up? Is it going after guys?
Yeah, every position you're gonna get beat. Corner, you're gonna give up. You might give up a touchdown, give up a catch, but it's just the people that line back up. That's them the great ones.
Mm-hmm. Something that Coach Drinkwitz talked about is that this group that has a core coming back from last year, but also a bunch of new experienced players like yourself, you need to find your own identity.
Right.
In your time spent with some of your teammates in the summer and the off season, how have you started to form those bonds that really are central to having a solid team when you're actually playing a game?
Yeah, so I'd say for the secondary, as soon as I got here in January, when we started winter workouts, I bonded with them quick. We still had segment meetings and stuff like that, and just getting around the players. It's some of them that I already knew. People don't even know. I knew Dre before me and him even got to college. My first visit was Arkansas, and I think I don't know if he verbally committed or what. He committed to Arkansas, and I met him. And then now it's just funny how we followed each other for so long. He went to A&M, and now it's just funny how at full circle now we back at Mizzou together. But I knew him already. I knew Jay Wayne. So
Yeah, it was just clicking up with everybody. Nick Deloach from Illinois, so everything, it was good. It was good.
What is it about that St. Louis and East Side connection
Yeah.
with all you guys together that you think helps make this team stronger?
I mean, for one, allude to the zoo. I mean, I don't really know how to answer that. It's just a lot of St. Louis guys, like, we got a lot of athletes out of Missouri, so I feel like if we just, Coach Drink, keep going down, keep shaking the tree for St. Louis kids, you're going to get a lot of good athletes, and that can help Mizzou in the SEC.
You know, we're going to learn a lot more about what you guys in your safety room and the cornerbacks as well, and entire secondary over the course of fall camp and as we get into the season. But what do you think is something about your room specifically that people maybe don't know yet that you hope they're going to find out over the next several weeks?
We all ballers. From the first string, second string, to third string, we all good.
How does that help you when you get on the field and understand that the guy next to you might be your friend, but you got that competition?
Yeah, it pushes you. Like, not saying like we're competing with each other, but everybody should be competing to be better for themselves. So like, I just look at it as if all 11 starters on the field is trying to get 1% better, but with themselves, like, you have no choice but to be great, and everybody do the job.
So we talked a little bit off the air, and you've been home a couple of times here. What's been your favorite part about being a lot closer to home now when it comes to, you know, being closer to family, friends, stuff like that?
Not really too much. I don't really do a lot when I go home. I just go back to see family. That's the joy to me. I just love being around family, my mom, dad, grandparents.
Is there anything mom cooks, though, that like, because everybody's got one of those,
pasta.
Right?
I'm a big pasta. I love seafood too, but Alfredo pasta. My grandma makes seafood pasta. Yeah.
Seafood pasta? Your grandma's seafood pasta?
Yeah.
You gonna invite anybody over?
Oh yeah. I got some teammates that come back with me sometimes.
All right. So we know that Toriano's grandma, you've got a high bar set now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because he talked you up here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. Well, Tori, we appreciate having you here. Thanks so much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing what it looks like on the field and off for you here in Columbia.
Thank you.
That's Toriano Pride.
This episode of Mizzou Storytellers on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast is brought to you by Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants. Sophia's and Addison's Restaurants are great local spots to visit before or after all Mizzou home games. Addison's has 2 locations in Southwest and downtown Columbia and features over 20 beers on tap, including local brewers and, of course, their famous Nachos Bianco. So remember, before or after the game, stop by Addison's.
You know, we heard from Phil Steele. He had questions about the secondary, right? And I think that's natural considering the talent that has departed. But there's talent coming in. And again, Mr. Pride figures to be featured amongst even his peers as transfers as someone who's really going to be impactful for this team on the back end.
Ennis Rakestraw and Chris Abrams-Drain both heard their names called in the NFL draft, so you're trying to replace some of that at corner. And there were some guys that are going to have more prominent roles now in the secondary that I think the team is pretty high on. But to get a guy with the talent of Toriano Pride, and again, we knew all about him, and if you followed recruiting at all, he was such a prized get coming out of high school that initially went to Clemson and now comes here. I had a chance to watch him in the spring game, and one thing that just pops out is that this is a big dude at corner. So I think he has the potential to be a real physical presence in the secondary, and hopefully he lives up to that promise that he seemed to have out of East St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll finish things out here with another transfer from Atlanta, Georgia, so he knows all about the SEC run of things, even though he comes by way of East Lansing, Michigan. An interesting Big Ten to SEC story here that we'll see play out with one of the Tiger new defensive ends. Why don't you meet with us, Zion Young?
One of the newcomers up front defensively for this year's Tigers team is Zion Young, originally from Atlanta, previously played at Michigan State. And Zion, so you were already at a major college football program. What was it about Mizzou that appealed to you?
Just the development they had here over the recent years, this past year, really in particular. I see what the defense was doing. I felt like I could add and be a great help to these guys. And yes, sir.
What is it about what you feel like you bring to this team that makes you feel like you can be a nice asset here?
Just the energy, me as a person. I'm actually in a family. I'm the youngest of 11 siblings, so I feel like Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I feel like, I feel like my energy, boss. My energy in particular.
Okay, so you said you're the youngest of 11, or you
Yes,
have
sir.
11 siblings?
I'm the youngest of 11. So I'm the 11th.
Okay,
sibling, yes, sir.
you're the 11th.
Yes,
so
sir.
you're growing up, and what's the age range? How much older is your oldest sibling?
My oldest brother is 38 years old.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And
So
that leaves me at 20 years old, so I'm the youngest been at 20.
Okay, about
Yes, sir.
18-year difference. So
Yes,
what
sir.
is that like whenever you're growing up and you've got 10 people ahead of you at the dinner table and stuff like that?
A lot of moms and dads. A lot of moms and dads, you know. That's how I feel. Everybody, all my older siblings. Well, I have 3 brothers. I actually had a brother who was recruited by Missouri, Kendall Young. He was out of Bentonville, West Arkansas.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So I mean, it's a blessing to have that many siblings. You know, growing up in a household like that.
Yeah, did he speak? I mean, this
sir.
place is, I'm guessing this is a different place than when
Yes,
your
sir.
older brother was being recruited here, but
Yes, sir.
still, did he have good things to say about
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He loved the community of Missouri. He wished he would have came here. But you know, it is what it is. Yes, sir, and I'm here.
Besides one of your older brothers, was it a pretty athletic family? Was everybody playing a lot of sports
Yes,
growing up?
I actually had a sister. She was a big time shot put thrower. Yes, sir. Yes, she was very highly recruited. She probably had. She had every. I think she had every Division I offer. Yeah, yes, sir. So it's a blessing.
So you didn't mess with her?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then just, so obviously having all that as your background, but just in general growing up in Atlanta, did the level of competition I'm guessing you were running into day in, day out on the football field,
Right.
I'm guessing that also helped to kind of
Right.
sharpen you.
So in particular, I played at Westlake High School in Atlanta. I just recently had one of my good friends, Nate Wiggins, go first round. I think out of 22 players, offense, defense, I think about 18 of us went Division I. We're all around. The first couple games, I'll play a couple of my D-line, couple of my buddies. So I mean, it was tremendous playing. I actually played in 9th grade. I had a little issue in 10th grade where I didn't get to play. I came back strong in 11th grade. That's where I received my scholarships. And I actually played linebacker before I played defensive end. So I'm sort of this would be my 3rd year playing defensive line, sort of. So I'm, you know. Yes, sir.
So what's been the biggest adjustment for you going from linebacker to defensive end?
Adjustment. I think the biggest adjustment, just having my hand in the dirt.
Sure.
Just having my hand in the dirt, trying to see everything with my hand in the dirt, you know, because I got heavier, so I really don't stand up a lot, but you know I go on the drop a little bit. But I feel like my hand in the dirt, you know, playing over a tight end, playing against a big offensive line, big tackle, or me being big too as well. I think that's the biggest adjustment though, big guy.
Was it always football for you, or what? You mentioned one of your older sisters was really
Yes, sir.
good in track and stuff.
Yes, sir.
But was it always
Correct.
football for you, or were you playing a lot of different sports growing up?
In one particular sport, I played lacrosse. I was the wing in lacrosse.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So I played lacrosse 3 years of my high school career. I think I was pretty good at that. Yes, sir.
Did it ever? I mean, obviously in the U.S., you know, in terms of potential future income opportunities,
Right.
football is an option. But was lacrosse a sport where it was like, man, if it was just about for love of it, would you have gone? Any thoughts about going that direction, or?
Yeah, sort of, yes, sir. I think so. What's funny is my high school head football coach was also my head coach for lacrosse, so he kind of taught me and I began enjoying it. Like I began enjoying what I did in lacrosse. Like I began enjoying it. I think I could have went somewhere in lacrosse, you know, somewhere.
Were you knocking people down? Were you
Yeah,
pretty physical?
that's exactly what I played. The wing to knock people down to go get that ball first. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very good. Well, whether it's lacrosse or football, wherever you end up, we're looking forward to seeing you out there, man. Thanks
Yes,
for your
sir.
time.
God bless.
That's Zion Young.
I saw your jaw drop. I saw it. He said, yeah, 11 siblings. And you had trouble processing it, Brad, to your credit. I mean, 11 is a lot in any day and age, much less this one. And so being the runt of a litter at 11 means you got to fight for what you got at the kitchen table or whatever else. The thing that I don't doubt about Zion Young, he's going to fight to earn it out there because if he hasn't done it his whole life, I don't know what he's done.
There was so much there. I needed more than the 5 minutes that we usually keep those interviews to. But yeah, the youngest of 11 kids total. So you've got that kind of complex as you're growing up. And then also the lacrosse background is pretty interesting. You don't have a lot. The first one I think of course, way back in the day is Jim Brown, who some think is maybe the best lacrosse and football player ever. But beyond that, you don't hear a lot of folks that, usually you kind of lock in and it's not a lacrosse kind of route. But you got to think, there's certainly some footwork elements involved there. You've got to have a different type of physicality and toughness, but you still need to have physicality and toughness in lacrosse. But yeah, an interesting guy. You mentioned his journey from, the South growing up to Michigan State and then back in the SEC with Mizzou. And he's one of the guys. There are a few others in there too that are going to be in the mix to try to join the likes of Johnny Walker and Christian Williams on the defensive line and try to replace the production of folks like Darius Robinson up front.
There is a club lacrosse team at the University of Missouri. I'm just saying, if there are negotiations that are going on
in all his free time that Zion Young's
and all the free time we know that he certainly has from football, they probably have their eyes on him now that the news is out. If there are any lacrosse fans listening to the podcast, they're already in touch. I'm very sure.
Certainly can. Yeah, looking forward. Those were a lot of fun. We'll have more of those conversations for you coming up throughout the month of August, leading up to kickoff as we get more chances to give you a chance to get to know folks and get to know that Zion Young is probably the best lacrosse player on the Mizzou football team and things like that. We really enjoy those conversations and looking forward to having more of them.
Yeah, we will keep them going. I want to change gears for just a second here, Brad, because we got some really sad news across the Mizzou family over the course of the past week. In fact, on Monday the 29th, the news came out that Hall of Fame coach, not just at the University of Missouri, but an American Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Famer, Coach Gene McCarter, passed away at the age of 83 on Sunday. Laird Veach, Missouri's director of athletics, called Gene McCarter a true Mizzou legend. I can think of no better words. Coach Mack was not only involved as a player under Johnny High Simmons, who has brought Missouri its only national championship at the NCAA level for that baseball team back in the 1950s. He was an assistant with Johnny High, then became the head coach of the Missouri baseball team, was instrumental in his time at the American Baseball Coaches Association as a leader on the board, among with some others, at creating what has become the modern College World Series. He was instrumental in developing that and making it into an event that everybody across the country could appreciate and make it one of the highlights on the sporting calendar, not just for baseball fans, but I think for college sports fans throughout the course of the years. Of course, along the way, he is the all-time winningest head coach at the University of Missouri on the baseball side. 21 years, 733 victories, Big 8 championships in 1976 and 1980. And I think more importantly than that, everybody that crossed paths with Coach Mack left with a smile on their face. And I got a chance to know him certainly later in life, well after his coaching days, being involved with Missouri baseball all the time. And, one of the memories I'll have of him is just how invested he always was in the baseball team, even having been gone from the athletic department and any sort of duty to it. You'd always see Coach Mack at the ballpark. He usually would be invited to speak to the team on a regular basis. You'd sometimes see him down in the dugout, imparting some words of wisdom or cracking a joke. And even, at the beginning of this past season, Tex Little and I got to see Coach Mack in the booth, and the first thing he had to say is, I didn't hear you guys on the radio, because we had some online-only broadcasts at the start of the past season. Like, yeah, Coach, I'm sorry. We can't do anything about that. Like, hey, you could listen to it. He's like, oh, I found you guys online. I got you set up. Like, that's just the type of person that Gene McCarter was. He was so deeply invested in the University of Missouri and its success, and not just the baseball program. And he's going to be missed by so many people around Mizzou athletics and by the state of Missouri.
Well, you mentioned the impact beyond the 733 wins he had as a Mizzou baseball head coach. I mean, he was a team captain as a player for a couple Big 8 championship teams, obviously a conference champion as a head coach. And, you didn't even get into, he was an athletic administrator here at Mizzou for a while. So, again, that impact goes beyond just being a head coach for decades on decades here at Mizzou and then beyond with college baseball too. And so, yeah, you're right. It's a big loss here this week.
He was an interim director of athletics when Mizzou's wrestling head coach Brian Smith was hired. I mean, think about that level of service, and long after his days coaching were done, still providing, important support and driving this thing forward. And there was nobody who wanted to see success for the Missouri Tigers much more than Coach Mack did. And so he is missed. He is in our thoughts and our prayers, to be sure, and certainly condolences to his family and to the Mizzou baseball family and to the Mizzou athletics family on the loss of someone who truly is a true son and a legend in Gene McCarter. Now, switching gears from that, there is so much, I think, for us to look forward to as we've just spent time reminiscing on a great Tiger. There are great Tigers who are taking to, well, the pool in one case, pool and track. We don't have any fields involved necessarily, but there are 3 Tigers who have gotten underway in the Olympic Games in Paris. And boy, it's just so cool when you can look up there and say, hey, I know that person. And Tiger fans have reasons to do that over these next 12, 13 days.
Absolutely. And kind of going in chronological order here, a couple swimmers. So Mikkel Schroeders, who represents Aruba, he competed in the 100 prelims in the pool Tuesday morning during the Olympic Games in Paris. He had the 26th fastest time, which was not enough to advance. He'll still compete in the 50 free prelims coming up on Thursday of this week. Another swimmer, Clément Secky, in his home country of France, competing in the 100 fly prelims coming up on Friday. And then a young lady who we've had a chance to talk to a couple of times, including here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast, a fairly new Mizzou Athletics Hall of Famer, Carissa Schweitzer. She's in the 5,000-meter final in Paris coming up on Friday of this week, and the 10,000-meter final is Friday of next week, the 9th.
Clément has a chance to do something special. I mean, did you see the video from that 400
for Marchand, Leon Marchand, yeah.
Leon Marchand, just that whole arena, which is like 40,000 people strong, was absolutely foaming at the mouth.
It was like a Taylor Swift.
Final.
It was like a Taylor Swift concert in there. Yeah, it was wild.
That is actually where Taylor Swift had her concerts outside of Paris, was in that arena. So yeah, the full circle there. But Clément has a chance to do something really special there, and of course Carissa. I mean, anybody who has the track record that she does, no pun intended, in terms of distance running, someone who won the NCAA cross-country championships, I think it's fair to say when she won them kind of out of nowhere, has a chance to shock people when she takes the track for 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters. I don't doubt her abilities at all. She's trained hard for this. I can't wait to see how it comes through. Want to see her in a final first, but then once you get there, let it rip.
It's not a situation like what Leon Marchand was in with the 400 IM and swimming for France. I mean, there's no clear cut. This lady is going to win by half a lap or something. I mean, it's going to be in the mix. We know that Schweitzer has that ability to come out of the pile out of nowhere, and hopefully she can do it again once or twice.
Absolutely. Look forward to all of those things as we go through. My goodness. I mean, when we talk about what's ahead for us on the podcast, I mean, volleyball is like 2.5 weeks away, something like that.
Yeah, their first exhibition coming up in mid-August.
Yeah, and then soccer will be at the same time, and before you know it, we'll be halfway through football camp and talking to all these players, and summer's over. Get ready, because it's going to be an exciting fall across Mizzou Athletics, and we look forward to bringing you as much of it as we possibly can here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. So unless I forgot something,
I think we're good. I would give quick shout out to Sophie Cunningham, the women's basketball legend. She competed in the WNBA All-Star Games skills competition and actually finished second. So that was kind of a nice exposure for her in her hometown All-Star game, if you will, since it was played in Phoenix. So shout out to her.
Yeah, everybody got a good look at it. Oh, here's a bit of news. The train from Memphis to Columbia, Missouri has continued because the Tiger Athletic Department just announced that Brad Luce is back.
Your boy.
Inside Athletics. Yes, our good friend. I've worked with Brad a couple of times.
Yeah, he's been a part-time color analyst on some Mizzou basketball broadcasts. So
Senior Associate AD for Development. So think about that. You go from, Austin Peay and your dad growing up and longtime head coach there, and find your way across the wasteland. You go to Missouri, you're an assistant coach, then you're not an assistant coach, and you work in development. And I think that actually they're having a Rally for Ryan pickleball event coming up pretty soon here in Columbia. So it's not like the Luce family is left, but now coming back. officially, I'm glad it all worked out that way because we love Brad Luce around here.
Exactly. Yeah. And Brad, like you mentioned, the father of Ryan Luce and the Rally for Ryan games have gotten great response. So it's great to see that. I'm assuming anyway that will continue and continue to grow.
I don't know if he listens to the podcast, but I can't wait to tell him in person that we thought we got rid of him and we just couldn't do it. All right, that's enough for one day. Big thanks to Phil Steele for joining us here on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast. Thanks, as always, to our friend Steve Sowers, who's helping us produce here in studio. For Brad Trinago, I'm Matt Michaels. We'll talk to you again real soon on the Inside Mizzou Athletics podcast.